Hello, hello, hello. I'd like to welcome everybody out here to the Real Podcast. This is episode 3, and I am having a great time recording just to hear my own voice. Shit, why the hell not, you know? Last week I discussed a few things like racism and being a strip club DJ and the corporate aristocracy, which is often a topic I like to do. But this week, today, in fact, I'm going to be discussing impeachment and why it's not about fruit. Corporate prisons, marijuana, heroin, and meth, the truth about them, the greatest stand-up comedians of all time, and a band I absolutely love and adore, Queensryche. Probably a lot of the younger listeners who actually I don't have any are wondering who the hell Queensryche is, but I guarantee you if you YouTube them, you'll have a great time listening to them because they are fucking geniuses. So as I said, I'd like to welcome every one of you out to the Real Podcast, episode 3. Let us begin.
Real. To thine own self be true. It's time to get real. The Real Podcast starts now.
So getting started right away, we're going to talk about our current president, and I guess he's getting impeached. I don't know shit about what impeachment means whatsoever. I've been told that he can still run for president again after being impeached. I have no idea what impeachment even means. I just know, because I've been told, it has nothing to do with fruit. So, you know, it's a beautiful thing to see that a president can be impeached and then absolutely take his ass right back on and, run again for president. Because that just goes to show you that it doesn't matter who the fuck's in office. If they are evil, corrupt, and I don't know if Trump is evil or corrupt, just saying, if they happen to be guilty of a crime, they can still run again for president. It just goes to show exactly what a politician is. They know this. They understand it. Politicians are always fucking guilty. So whether you hate Trump or you hate Obama or you hate Hillary, I hate them all because in my life, I'm 37 years old and I've never experienced a politician who hasn't been corrupted and bought by the corporate aristocracy. So, I could give a shit less who the hell's running for president. Impeachment is a funny thing because it's a funny word. It has the word peach in it, and it just should say something along the lines of, this guy's fucking guilty. Well, is he guilty? I don't know. Maybe they should go to court, but I guess you can't do that with a standing president. I don't know exactly. I know Nixon resigned, and then he wasn't forced to go to jail or anything like that, but he was guilty of a crime. And I know there was one other who got impeached, that's Bill Clinton, and that's because, he got his dick sucked. And we all know that we can't have presidents getting their dick sucked. That's why Kennedy got assassinated. Got too many times his dick was being sucked, and so they blew his head off. I'm pretty sure that's the reasoning. I could be wrong. But yeah, when a president gets elected, we think it's because of votes and all this other shit. I don't believe that one bit. I believe the elections are a lot like professional wrestling. The outcome is already known, but it's very exciting to watch. It's very exciting to watch this person or whoever's going to win and the race to be the big winner and the big cheese in charge of the United States empire. It's a great thing whenever we see someone get elected and then they go in and they get told all the secrets and their hair immediately grays because the shit turns white whenever the government tells you about the secrets, and the corporate aristocracy sits you down and shows you the Zapruder film. And they remind you who the fuck is really in charge. The Waltons, the DuPonts, the Mars family, S.C. Johnson, all these people, they're really in charge. So when you vote, you might as well write their names in because that's who you're electing. In fact, you don't even elect them. They are the aristocracy. They're already in charge. So when it comes down to, presidents standing or otherwise, whether they are corrupt or not, what do they actually do? Like, what does a president do? I don't know this. I'm sure I was taught at one point in class, not that any of that is real, but I'm sure I was taught at one point they have the right to veto certain things that are brought up and all this other shit. I don't know exactly, but what do they actually do? Why do we need a president? I'm an avid listener of Joe Rogan, and I hate to bring him up again, but I'm an avid listener of him, and he has this one idea about what the fuck do we even need a president for? And I kind of agree with him. Why the fuck do we need one guy in charge? I thought we were trying to get away from monarchies. Thought we were trying to get away from one leader. In fact, George Washington himself didn't want to be president. They basically forced it. They thrust it upon him because they wanted one person to be in charge, because that's all humans have ever known, really. We've always had one person that is the big cheese, the big kahuna, the one who is in charge. And it's either a president, a prime minister, a king, a queen. It's one person who's directly in charge of all things that happen to their country, their people. Whether it's a dictator, a tyrant, or some noble, loving, benevolent entity that controls, there's always one person in control. And I have to wonder, why do we need that? In reality, it should be a group of people who are in charge that, kind of like the Senate and the Senate and Congress, almost like them, except not corrupt and not full of bursting at the seams with rich assholes who have no clue about what it is to be an American, an actual human being. They have no clue what it's like to be poor. They have never been poor, because every politician we elect has money. That's just how it is. They all have money. You have to have money to even run for any office. You have to. That's what it's all about. That's why they're constantly campaigning, and they're asking for donations, and they're trying to get money so that they can promote themselves. And that's just the way that we work in our political system here. I believe it works that way in a lot of places. However, it's just, what do we need a president for? Well, what does the president do, really? I mean, if the president was killed right now, or the president was taken out of office and there was no one who took his place, and it was just the Senate and Congress who were in charge, would things still get done? Would our political system just collapse? Would the government just fall and then, we're suddenly taken over by another country? I mean, what would happen? I don't feel that we need a president. I feel that we need people who actually give a shit about all of us, the people of the United States. And that is a fucking pipe dream, because you just can't have that in this world. Anyone who is elected to a political office, especially a very high level political office, is going to be wealthy, and they probably come from old money, and they've been wealthy, their family has been wealthy, generational wealth. So they have no idea what it is like to struggle every day, live paycheck to paycheck, to have to worry about your mortgage, or to have to worry about where you're going to sleep, to have to worry about how you're going to get your next meal. They have no idea what that's like, because they've never worried for those things. So why do we keep electing them? Why do we have one person who has no idea what it's like to be the people of the United States, trying to speak on behalf and act on behalf of the people of the United States? It doesn't make any logical sense, at least to me. I could be fucking wrong, but think about it. Why in the fuck would President Trump, let's just bring him up, why would President Trump know what it's like to be on welfare, or to need welfare? He wouldn't. The man's been rich his entire existence. He has no fucking clue what it's like to struggle, to worry about how you're going to get your next meal. He has no idea what it's like to worry about how your children are going to be educated, or how they're going to be fed, where they're going to sleep. Are they going to be warm? Are they going to have toys for Christmas? Stuff like that. He has no idea. So how can he act on behalf of the people? And that goes for President Obama, that goes for President Clinton, that goes for President Bush, both Bushes. That goes for every president that has been pretty much ever. They've always been wealthy, aristocracy. They're part of the aristocratic class. So how would they know what it's like to be middle class or poor, or even upper middle class? I mean, they don't know. They're beyond that. We've had people run for president that make $68,000 a day. A day? People don't make that in a year. If you make $68,000 in a year, you are doing well for yourself in this country. I mean, you're not buying islands wealthy, but you're doing well. You can feed your kids, you can feed yourself, you have a house, you have 2 vehicles, 3 vehicles, you have the things that you want, and you're comfortable in life. Shit, I would kill for $68,000 a year. This people make $68,000 in a day. In a day. So they are beyond wealthy. They are super uber rich. So how can they speak on behalf of the people? How can they be for the people? And they're definitely not by the people, unless you consider the fact that they made their wealth on the backs of the people, stepping on them to go up their ladders to end up in the aristocratic class. So impeachment, is it real? Is it something that even matters? I don't know, but we're going to find out soon, and I'll bring up this topic again. I don't know. I'd say probably next episode or episodes in the future. I'm definitely going to bring it up again whenever I know more about it. I just wanted to speak a little bit on it and discuss it a little bit.
Damn it, Bertha, an axe murderer broke in again.
My name is Donnie Prater, former sergeant in the United States Army. Are you tired of being afraid? Are you sick of waiting for the worst to happen? Are you finished feeling helpless and alone? Well, then it's time to take action. The Bunny Master Bare Hands 3000 can help you to take control of your life. The Bare Hands 3000 home defense system has been designed by experts to protect you and the ones you love from all of your enemies. The new patented 5-knuckle penetration and targeting method was created with even the most pathetic individual in mind. Watch your enemies run for cover as you unleash the Bare Hands 3000's 5-finger death mode and wrist-activated target lock. No more need to reload a gun when you can unload the ass whipping of a lifetime. All intruders will fear you when they see the 3000's lab-tested burst fire and full auto modes. Beware, criminals. Guns are no match for the Bare Hands 3000. No background checks, no wait times, and no chance. No chance for your enemies, that is. The Bunny Master Bare Hands 3000, the last line of home and personal defense. Knuckle bandages and broken glass, as well as rusty nails included with every purchase.
So now that I've spoken a little bit about impeachment, I'd like to move on to another subject that really just pisses me off, and that is our current prison system. Now, a lot of you probably know this, but I'm just going to mention it again. We have more people in prison than any other country on earth, per capita too. Now, it's not because we have more people. Even in China, per capita, these places that we consider tyrannies and horrible, tyrannical idiots are in charge, they have less people per capita in prison than we do. And why is that? Well, I have a theory, and I think it's because prisons are no longer run by the state. They are run by corporations, which means they are there to make money. The capitalism of making money on the poor and the criminal element, people who perchance, drug addicts, people who have stolen, murderers too. I'm not going to say that these people who are in prison are all just innocent, not guilty people who deserve to be free, but I am going to say they don't deserve to be slaves. The 13th Amendment is supposed to have abolished slavery in this country, but it does not. It mentions that if you are a prisoner, that 13th Amendment does not apply to you, which is why we have corporate prisons, where they force inmates to work, and the prisons themselves make a shit ton of money off of that free slave labor. They give those prisoners, those inmates, the very bare minimum of what is necessary to survive, and then they force them to work. It sounds a lot like slavery to me, which is exactly what it is. So why do we have so many people in prison? Well, it's probably because those corporations have lobbyists. And those corporations, those corporate prisons, are part of the corporate aristocracy, and they need money. They want money. They want that power. So let's put people in prison for growing marijuana, for instance. Why do you think marijuana is still not federally legal in this country? In all these states, including my own, I live in Washington State, we at any time, if the government decided to have the DEA come in and raid our states and take away the marijuana and put all those people in prison who have been selling it, they could, and they very well might, depending upon if the people would not riot about it. See, I think the people would actually riot over marijuana because that's a serious one. But if marijuana and any other drug, which I'm going to be discussing both of those a little bit later, hard drugs and marijuana, if they're considered illegal and you could put people who have a sickness, an illness, an addiction in prison, or people who are trying to make money in the poverty class and in the middle class, the people who are trying to make money by selling these things to people in prison, in corporate prisons, and you make money. You make a lot of money. Those corporate prisons are making money hand over fist. Never, ever doubt that. They're making a shit ton of money on the backs of slave labor that was gotten, in my mind, in a illegal, immoral way by putting people who are addicts in prison, putting people who are desperate in prison, and forcing them to be slaves. That is horse shit. This is supposed to be the land of the free, the home of the brave, all that patriotic bullshit you hear. But I guess it's not. We still have slavery in this country, and now slavery is no longer just for African Americans and Native Americans. It is for the poor. It is for every color. It's just not for the corporate aristocracy. There is no corporate person who's going to go to prison and be forced to work. No, they will go to a nice little white collar prison, very low kind of guards. It's not going to be a maximum security prison where they're going to force them to do slave labor to make money for the corporate aristocracy. No, those people, if they even do go to prison, which is extremely rare, they go to basically country clubs that are considered prisons. Minimum security, all kinds of just awesome times you can have in there. And, it's just wrong. It just shows you how capitalism that is completely unchecked can go awry. And it is happening in multiple areas of our lives. Don't think for an instant that if you say you've never committed a criminal act, that you can't go to prison. They can put your ass in prison. Don't ever doubt it. When I was in the military, they used to have us make our beds in a certain way. It had to be absolutely perfect. I'm sure people have seen that in movies and all that, bouncing quarters off of the bed and shit like that. Well, I was a very arrogant individual at the time, and so I literally I made my bed perfectly in my eyes, and I challenged my drill sergeant to find something wrong with it. And he did. He found something, a very nitpicky thing, and he destroyed my bed. He threw it all over the ground. He made me do push-ups for like an hour. And after I was done, he told me, he goes, never ever challenge someone who has power over you to find something that you have done wrong, because they can always find something. No one is perfect. Try your best, do your best, and succeed in life, but never challenge those who have power over you to find something that you're doing wrong, because they can, and they will. They can always do that. And say you are absolutely perfect. Well, they can actually make some shit up about you. Maybe plant some evidence. Maybe it's some shit you didn't even know was illegal, which there are very, very many things that are laws that you have no idea are illegal that they can put you in prison for. And then you'll be right next to Jeffrey Dahmer fucking digging ditches or making license plates or whatever they do now to make money. I believe they're building houses. They're doing all kinds of shit. Slave labor. So you too can be a part of that corporate prison system, that slavery system that we have in this country. And you too can be a part of the largest and fastest growing population in the entire world, the American prison system. It is giant. There are so many people, millions upon millions of people who are in that prison system, and they are making money for the corporate aristocracy right in front of us. And you know who's doing something about it? Absolutely fucking no one. Because one thing, a lot of conservatives were all about being tough on crime. And a lot of Democrats are all about being tough on social justice issues. They want to put people in prison just as much as the conservatives do. They both parties, both types of people, they want people in prison because they feel that if these people are criminals and they are bad, as they're bad people, which is not the truth. Some people are desperate. Some people just make a mistake. Some people are addicts, and these people don't deserve necessarily to be hated and ostracized and turned into pariahs and just locked away from society because of that fact, because of those facts. People are not perfect, just like I said before. And when it comes down to that, just because someone's not perfect doesn't mean they should be a slave in the corporate prison system that we have in the United States. Which brings us to our next topic, marijuana. Drugs are bad, Stan. Marijuana, it's bad. Okay, Stan? Okay, it's bad.
Hear the new hit song Sameness by America's #1 band Conformity. Sameness off of Conformity's new album We Are All One Person. The best of what I have already heard before by Will Williams of the Chicago Herald. The sound seems familiar, yet not completely stolen, raves the New York host. The Seattle Times exclaims, "God damn it, where the fuck is Queensryche when you need them?" Sameness by Conformity. Hear it on ThemTube now. Or see Conformity live on their Same Shit Different Day tour. Now performing at all the same arenas as every other band you have heard of. Get your tickets now at www.ticketslave.com. Conformity's album We Are All One Person is available for purchase on Orange Tunes as well as 16secondsongs.com. Sameness by Conformity.
Yes, marijuana. Marijuana is often, looked upon, misunderstood by the ignorant in this country. They say stupid things like, it's a gateway drug and all this other bullshit. Let me tell you, I've been a drug addict for a long time, and marijuana, anytime I have it, I don't want any other drugs. That's just how it is. Marijuana is a beautiful, beautiful medication. It is a beautiful drug. It is a beautiful recreational drug. But it just has so many uses that are perfectly great. I mean, just beautiful, beautiful plant that should not be illegal in any way. In fact, no drug should be illegal. No plant, no synthesized drug. Every drug should be legal because guess what? This is my body and I'll do to it what I will because it's mine. It's one of the few things I really own in this life, and it's my body. Of course, the corporate aristocracy doesn't want me to own my body. They would much rather own it themselves. That way they could put me in a corporate prison, but we're not going to go back to that topic. We're going to stay on the topic of marijuana. Why is it illegal? Well, it has a lot to do with, I believe, William Randolph Hearst, and it has a lot to do with the fact that, the timber and tree industry, the lumber industry, was being threatened by the hemp industry. And if you have all your money in one industry and then suddenly another industry pops up that could possibly make a lot more money and destroy your industry in the meantime as well, you want to do everything in your power to stop that from happening because it takes away your power, it takes away your money, it takes away your control. Well, marijuana has always been a threat to some people who are in control. One thing, you hear this often, smoking marijuana, doing edibles, it changes your way of thinking. It really does. You see, I was straight edge. Straight edge means that I didn't do any drugs. I didn't even drink caffeine. I stayed away from everything. For a very long time, I was straight edge. In fact, all the way until right before I joined the Army. I think I was about 23 or 24. And that's when I first tried drinking. Drinking was my gateway drug. And anyone who says drinking is not a gateway drug is either not a drinker, or they work for the alcohol industry, or they're just fucking lying. Maybe they're dumb, that too. But drinking, it takes away your inhibitions. So if somebody lines up a rail of Coke in front of you after you've been drinking like 10 shots, chances are you're going to snort that rail of Coke. But if somebody lines up a rail of Coke in front of you after you've smoked a few bowls, chances are you're going to stay away from that Coke because you're still thinking properly. In fact, you're thinking a lot better, in my personal opinion. You're thinking outside the box. When I first tried marijuana, it was one of the most beautiful, beautiful things that had ever happened to me. It was an experience the likes of which I cannot explain to anyone who has not smoked marijuana themselves. It was just amazing, enlightening, emotionally uplifting. Everything about it made me feel better about myself. It made me feel better about the way things are. It made me not care as much about a lot of the things I shouldn't care as much about. And it made me care about things that I should care about a lot more. So yeah, marijuana is it's a gateway drug, all right. It's a gateway to enlightenment. It's a gateway to self-healing. And if used properly, it's a gateway to uplifting yourself, creating a better you, a better thinking you. And that's my personal opinion. There's no scientific basis behind that. That's just my personal opinion from my personal usage of that particular plant, that medication. People like to call it a drug. Well, that was started way back during the beginning of drug marijuana prohibition. They did it. They blamed it on Hispanics. The Mexicans smoke it. The black people smoke it, and they get crazy. That's where you get things like reefer madness. By the way, for all the young people out there who don't know what I'm talking about, there is a movie called Reefer Madness. If you are a marijuana smoker, I highly recommend you get a few buds of some of the finest kind bud weed you can find. My personal choice is Snoop Dogg's Blue Dream. Much love to you, Snoop. Blue Dream is the shit. Get some of that Blue Dream. It's a nice sativa. And watch the movie Reefer Madness and prepare to be shocked and to laugh your ass off. Because Reefer Madness, this movie, is basically, it's a conglomeration of all these different prohibition style ads, these scare ads that were put out back in the day, the 50s and the 60s, I believe maybe the 40s as well, about marijuana making you turn crazy. Like you turn crazy and you want to slaughter everyone around you. Now, anyone who has smoked marijuana will laugh their ass off just by the fact that I said those words. Those words actually came out of my mouth. Well, those words were believed by people for decades because they put out all this propaganda, this negative propaganda against marijuana. And the reason was because it was affecting one of the corporate aristocracy's bottom line. His money was being affected by marijuana. So he put out ads, he used the media, and he destroyed the good reputation of a plant that has been used for thousands of years as a medication and a recreational drug. It is beautiful in every way. And they destroyed it. They got real ugly real quick. Because when you affect one of the corporate aristocracy's bottom line, when you affect their wallet, their money, they fight. They fight hard and they will destroy whatever is doing that. Whoever is doing that. So they went after marijuana, and in so doing, they also went after every other drug they possibly could. Anything that will alter your consciousness was suddenly considered a bad thing. It was suddenly considered evil. It was suddenly considered that people who did it were criminals and they should go to prison. And that is wrong in every foreseeable way. It is horrible to even think in that way. And people who still think in that way, I don't hate you. You were brainwashed just like a lot of other people. Unless you're part of the corporate aristocracy, I hate you because you know better and you're doing it on purpose so you can control people and tell them what they can and cannot do to their own body, to their own mind. That is something that should be a right of all the people. Every person born in this country or born on this planet, this third rock from the sun, every person who is born, every animal, every being that lives here should have the right to own and do what they will with their body and their mind. If I decide to drink a cap of bleach right now, it's none of your fucking business. It's my business, and I will deal with the consequences of that because it's my body and my mind, not yours. Though you think it is yours, though you want it to be yours, and though you are changing laws to make it yours, this is mine. Until the day it turns back into worm food, this dad body I have right here is mine. This ridiculous mind I have, this crazy, wild-ass mind that thinks 1,000,000 thoughts an hour, this mind is mine, and I will do with it what I will. Marijuana has changed my life for the better. Now, I can't say that for every single drug I've ever done. We're going to get on the truth of some of those other drugs here shortly. But marijuana changed the way I thought. When I was young and I was straight edge, I used to beat people up who smoked weed because I thought they were destroying their bodies and they were trying to hurt me with their smoke and their rhetoric is what I used to think. Their propaganda to try to make me do it. Peer pressure, something you're all scared of. Just say no to drugs. I have no problem with people who are straight edge. I was that, and it was a good experience. But if it wasn't for marijuana, I never would have been able to think in the way I think now. which I think is a gift. It's a gift from the goddess marijuana herself, that beautiful bitch. She has changed my life for the better, and she will always change my life for the better. That's what she does. Now, I'm not going to say, you see, every single person reacts differently to medications. That's just how it is. We all have different chemistries that are flowing around in our brains. So some people, they will smoke marijuana and they get extremely paranoid. Maybe they have psychotic breaks. Some people do have psychotic breaks. It happens. That's just the way it affects them. But it was up to them to do that. It doesn't affect everybody. In fact, it affects the majority of people not in that way. It does not affect the majority of people that way. That is the exception to the rule. It does happen, and I am sorry for those people because they can't get the gift of marijuana. They can't get that beautiful gift that has been given to us. But there are other things for them. That is the reason there are multiple chemicals out there that affect psychotropically our mind, psychoactive substances. They change the way you think, the way you observe reality. Some for the better, some for the worse, depending upon the individual.
I'm so horny.
Gentlemen, it's time to get nasty. The Nasty Clam, America's premier destination for adult entertainment, is wide open for business. Are you bored? Get nasty. Are you broke? Get nasty. Are you ready? Get nasty. Only a $3 cover. Doors open at 9 a.m. and the party stays hot until the cops get called. Get out. Get ready. Get nasty.
Come out and play.
This, of course, brings us to our next topic, the truth about hard narcotics. They're called hard because they affect you psychoactively in a much more extreme rate. Heroin, meth, fentanyl, crack, cocaine, regular powdered cocaine. I mean, these are all considered hard narcotics. They're all considered really bad by the majority of people out there, and they can be very, very negative to you. But you see, there is a thing that exists, and it's called moderation. Some of these drugs are good for you. Heroin is considered Schedule 1. Now, Schedule 1, that means it is illegal, and the reason it's illegal is because it has no medical use, and it affects the person who does it in a very negative way. It destroys them in some way. It has no medical use. Let me tell you something. If you get a cut, a deep laceration in your arm, and the only thing you have to take away that pain is heroin, well, you are a lucky individual because it does take away pain. All of opiates come from opium, the opium poppy. In fact, it's an Afghani poppy. This poppy, it produces opium. It produces a white, like a viscous substance that comes out of the pods of these poppies. And people turn it into opium, which can then be turned into heroin, which then can be turned into morphine. You see, all painkillers come from opium. Well, I won't say all painkillers, but all opiate painkillers come from the heroin poppy, the opium poppy. That means that heroin does have a medical use. It has plenty of medical uses. Let me tell you something. Whenever I worked as a tree worker, it's a very difficult, grueling job. It is dangerous in a lot of ways. And you get a lot of aches and pains, serious pains, because you're lifting trees and you're pulling them out, you're getting scratched up, cut up, you're throwing stuff into a wood chipper, you're dragging large branches for hundreds of yards sometimes uphill. It is a very difficult yet monotonous job that is dangerous beyond all belief. I used to smoke heroin when I did that job, and I was able to do that job without pain. I was able to exceed my expectations of what I was supposed to do, because for me, heroin produces a very upper type effect. I get a boost of energy, a burst of energy when I do it. I don't nod out. And that's the way it chemically affects me. Some people are not chemically affected in that way. But for me, it helped in a lot of ways. This is why I also have taken kratom. Kratom is I believe it's an opioid agonist, and I believe that it is almost opioid, but opiate. It is not though. It comes from a tree. It's a plant that's ground up into a powder, and you ingest it by eating it, taking capsules of it or drinking it in a liquid, which I do not recommend. It tastes like hell. It is horrible tasting, but it gives you that burst of energy, a slight bit of a mood lift. So say you're depressed, this will make you not depressed. And that burst of energy, and it gives you a pain, it takes away your pain. It's a very good medication, and I highly recommend it for a lot of people, especially if you do monotonous, hard work. It does not affect you mentally in a way that where you are mentally, to where your mentality is affected negatively. You can still think properly. It doesn't ruin your inhibitions, and it doesn't make you want more of it. There's no giant need for more of it. It doesn't want to make you redose, is what they call it. It doesn't make you want to redose. Kratom is great for that. You see, there are medical uses for these things. Now, am I saying that heroin should be used by everyone? No, that is definitely not what I'm saying. But I can tell you this. I have known functional heroin addicts, and they work regular jobs. In fact, I will not mention a name, but I know a lawyer, a very high-profile lawyer, who smokes heroin. And that's how he gets through his day, and he succeeds in life. That is just what goes on. For every drug out there, there's someone who is functionally doing it. Now, like methamphetamine, for instance, that's the scary drug. Everybody's real scared of that one. I'm sure most of us have seen that Faces of Meth, like those pictures of the lady who went her first mugshot, she looks okay, and then her last mugshot, she looks like she's 90 and has been beaten up by life. But yet it's only been like a year of meth use. Well, that's extreme abuse of meth. But let me tell you something, meth, the scariest drug that most people know, meth is Schedule 2. Schedule 2 means it has a very adverse effect on a body, yet it does have medical uses and can be prescribed by doctors. And in fact, methamphetamine is prescribed by doctors for certain ailments such as ADHD, morbid obesity is another one. This medication is what it is. It is a medication, and it can be used functionally. But the problem comes from abuse. A lot of people will abuse. You see, the problem with meth and most amphetamines and methamphetamines is they make you want to redose. There's a compulsion to redose. So people who smoke meth, for instance, they smoke it all day long, constantly. They smoke it. They never stop. And that's what I did when I did meth. It was not a good drug for me at all. So it was not a medication for me. To me, I just wanted to abuse it. And another thing is it has sexual side effects. It makes you extremely horny. Your libido raises ridiculously. And then the most horrible part of that is you get something called crystal dick a lot of times, where your penis will not get erect, yet you are hornier than anything you've ever been, but you cannot get an erection. This happens a lot, especially with people who redose all day long, which is what I did on methamphetamine. Cocaine, powder cocaine, is a Schedule 2 drug. In fact, if you have nose or sinus surgery, they use cocaine to numb you. That's right, they use cocaine to numb you, to take away your pain in your sinuses and nostrils. It has a medical use, Schedule 2. You know what? Going back to marijuana, you know what Schedule marijuana is? Schedule 1. Federally, that means it has no medical use according to the government, and it is detrimental to your life and body and mind, which is the most ridiculous thing that has ever been stated, ever. I mean, I defy you to find something more ridiculous than that. Marijuana is scheduled in the same schedule as heroin and a lot of other drugs, including psychoactives. There's a reason for this, and that's because of the fact that they change your mind for the better. They make you think, oh shit, maybe we shouldn't be electing these politicians. Maybe we shouldn't be listening to these corporations, this corporate aristocracy. Maybe we should be thinking for ourselves. They don't want that. That would be horrible for the corporate aristocracy. That would be horrible for the people in power. So they scheduled it as Schedule 1, even though these are known medications that have been used for thousands of years. Psychoactives, such as hallucinogens, psilocybin is a healing thing. It's beautiful. DMT, it is probably, almost definitely, produced in the body Naturally, DMT is Schedule 1, and it is a great medication. I have taken DMT and it has changed my life for the better. It's one of the reasons I'm doing this now, is because I can think properly. I actually have a motivation to do this. Even though the chances are people will not listen to this, it will bore the fuck out of most people. It doesn't matter to me, because I know that this is something that I'm supposed to do. And DMT, marijuana, psilocybin, these things have changed me to think in that way, that positive way. It's changed my mind. I was depressed about life. Now, this is making me not depressed. Along with other medications I take, this is helping me. But DMT, psilocybin, marijuana, these psychoactives have changed my life for the better. And I truly believe that they change people's lives for the better. A lot of people. Some people will affect them adversely. That's how it is. Like I said before, people are affected differently by different things. One person can take aspirin and be fine. Another person will die if they take a single aspirin. That's just how it is. So when it comes down to like the hard drugs, the truth about them is this: they should be legal, and there should be doctors out there who can prescribe them to people who it does not affect adversely in a positive way. There are functional drug users all over the world. And so if we had this in a way to where it was doctors who knew what they were talking about, who knew what they were doing, they could prescribe, say, for instance, me, they would prescribe me heroin, and they would prescribe it in a non-abusive way. They would prescribe it in a proper way, a medical way. Then it would help my life. It would help a lot of people's lives. Methamphetamine, it helps people's lives. MDMA is ecstasy. And ecstasy, that nice little drug right there, that horrible narcotic, MDMA, which is actually called, a street drug name is ecstasy, is currently being prescribed to soldiers with PTSD because it works. It helps them. People with extreme PTSD, soldiers who fought in Afghanistan, Iraq, soldiers who have dealt with real horrible shit and have to deal with that every day for the rest of their lives, are being helped positively by MDMA or ecstasy, that like fun little research chemical, or what they call a designer drug, a club drug. That drug, that narcotic, that horrible narcotic, is helping our soldiers. It's helping people with PTSD, not just soldiers. Soldiers are not the only ones who get PTSD. If you were beaten as a child, horribly abused, you get PTSD. It's just the way your mind tries to deal with things. And MDMA can help you. Psilocybin can help you with that. They can be prescribed. So that horrible narcotic, let me tell you, if you have 1 milligram of MDMA on you and a cop finds that, you will go to jail for felony possession of a narcotic. But that drug, that narcotic, can be prescribed helpfully. It can be prescribed positively to help you if you have PTSD or other ailments. It turns out that the truth about all these hard narcotics is this: they are not hard narcotics. They are medications that have medical uses. And if we treated them as such and had doctors that prescribed them, then there would be no opioid epidemic. There would be no drug problem. There would be a medication. That's right, medications. That's what they are. That is the truth about hard narcotics. Now, let me tell you the truth about the big narcotic right now that's called fentanyl. Fentanyl is a synthesized opioid. It is made basically to take away pain. If you go to surgery, they use fentanyl on you. Now, fentanyl has killed a lot of people, but what that people don't understand, because the media doesn't cover this fact, the reason it's killing people is because it is sold oftentimes as heroin. Heroin is not quite as powerful as fentanyl. Fentanyl affects you differently than heroin. So if you inject fentanyl thinking it's heroin, you might inject a whole lot more than you should because of the fact that you think it is heroin. That's how most heroin addicts die, is because they get a dose that is a lot stronger than what they've been used to. Now, if you get a dose that isn't heroin, it's fentanyl, it will possibly kill you. But the truth about fentanyl is this: it is a medication that is used in surgery. It is used for cancer patients. It has positive effects. It has positive uses, and it's not evil. It's not some giant killer thing that is just murdering our people. There is no opioid epidemic. It is the same as it has always been. Heroin, opioids, opiates have been used for a very long time in this country and all over the world. They have been abused all over the world for as long as they have existed. It's just how it is. There's nothing different that's happening now. But the media wants to make it evil. Put these people in prison, these addicts, these horrible people. Put them in corporate prisons so they can make money for the corporate aristocracy. I don't think so. The truth is this: it's a medication. All of the narcotics I have told you about are not narcotics. They are medications. And if prescribed and used properly, they have positive effects.
Our country is falling. The drug epidemic is overwhelming. Homeless numbers are rising. The economy is complicated. There are so many problems in this country right now, and no real answers coming from within. It's time to let go. This November, vote for the political party with all of the answers you couldn't think of. Vote for the dependent party. Why think for yourself when others can think for you? Change, hope, freedom. Vote dependent for an easier way of life. I'm DS Traction, and I approve this message.
Now to move on to something a little bit more light, a subject that is a little bit more fun. Let's talk about the greatest stand-up comedians of all time, in my opinion. Why the fuck not, right? I love stand-up comedy. It is my favorite form of entertainment. I believe it is an art form. It is not just some bullshit people talking. These people work on their craft for years to perfect their craft, and it is absolutely amazing what a great stand-up comedian can do. People like George Carlin, Bill Hicks, Doug Stanhope, Joe Rogan, Bill Burr. These people are some of the greatest comedians who have ever lived. They have perfected their craft. They are masters at their art. And goddamn if they don't just make everything in life better with their funny ideas. Their ideas on life and the way they express them. It's absolute genius. My favorite comedian of all time is Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks is what's known as the comedian's comedian, because if you want to learn how to do stand-up comedy, you need to watch Bill Hicks. That guy was absolute comedy 101 right there. He knew how to make anything funny, but he also knew how to present a message, an idea in a funny way that would actually make you think instead of just laugh. It would make you think. And a lot of today's comedians, they took a lot of what they know and how they do things from Bill Hicks. That doesn't mean they're stealing from him. That just means they saw what he did and they incorporated it into their own comedy, making their comedy better. Bill Hicks was amazing. I highly recommend Revelations and Relentless. Those are his two comedy specials that are most known, and they are great. Another great one is Sam Kinison. Sam Kinison died well before his time, and that's because he was partying out. He was really going down that road. He's partying hard, but that was what his character that he portrayed was all about. He was a rock star comedian. Sam Kinison, highly recommend him. He was a preacher, evangelist preacher before he started comedy. And you could really tell in his comedy because he had this scream that he did that was just, I mean, one of a kind. No one can possibly emulate him. He was a genius, and he was amazing. He could make anyone laugh as long as you weren't one of those people who gets offended by everything someone says. Sam Kinison, absolutely amazing. Highly recommend watching his specials, especially the first special he did with the homosexual necrophiliacs. My God, that just rolling on the ground laughing. Hilarity. George Carlin. George Carlin was a wordsmith. He knew how to convey the English language perfectly in a way that he wanted to convey it. A genius beyond all belief. Started as a DJ, I believe a radio DJ and host, and he was Mr. Conductor at one point. If you don't know who that is, then fuck you. He's Mr. Conductor. But George Carlin talked about the 7 words you can't say, and I recommend that one. That's one of his first breakout specials that he did, and he got a lot of that idea from Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce was one of the first stand-up comedians to really push the boundaries of what you could say back in the 50s and 60s, whenever you could go to jail for offensive things you said. See, we worked real hard for a long time to stop the law from telling us what we can and cannot say. You should not be able to put someone in jail because they said something that is offensive to you. And Lenny Bruce was at the forefront of this. He died a horrible death because of the fact that it was an uphill battle for him. And I wish that he could be around to at least see and know that his work was not in vain. Lenny Bruce, that's another one. It will be very light to people. It's not as offensive as you might think, because it was back in the 50s and 60s. Lenny Bruce at the time was saying things that weren't allowed. He went to jail multiple times. In fact, George Carlin, the comedian I talked about before this, was in the audience one night whenever he went to jail for saying offensive things. Back in the day, whenever you could go to jail for saying offensive things. This is something that the social justice warriors and the super left progressives want to bring back. If you're offensive, if you are speaking hate speech, then you should go to jail. No, fuck you. I'll say whatever the fuck I want to say because it's called freedom of speech. And if you're offended by it, don't fucking listen to it. Go listen to whatever you fucking listen to that makes your mediocre mind mediocre. I'm going to say and do whatever I want to do as long as it doesn't negatively affect anyone else around me in an actual way. Because being offended is not a negative effect. That is an actual negative effect. It's going to be horrible to you. It's not going to negatively affect you in a way to where your life is destroyed. And if it does, then you are a pussy and don't deserve to have a life. Fuck you. Offensive shit should not put people in jail. Hate speech, that's allowed. It's called freedom of speech. Learn about it. Now, Lenny Bruce was at the forefront. Let's talk about some prominent African American comedians. One of my absolute favorites, Richard Pryor. That man was a genius who, in a time whenever civil rights was just coming into fruition, it was just coming. They were still in the middle of it. And we still are now, but they were seriously in the middle of it. This is right after people were being sprayed with fire hoses and shit from marching in the street, Martin Luther King era. This man was able to bring people together with his comedy. It didn't matter what color you were watching Richard Pryor. You could be a grand wizard in the KKK and you'd be like, well, that guy right there, he's funny. He's one of the good ones. That's the way you would speak about him, because Richard Pryor was a genius and he knew how to tell a story in a way to where you could actually see it happening without actually seeing it happening. His words were conveyed in a way that played movies in your head. He's absolute genius. Another great, great man. Eddie Murphy loved Richard Pryor. And that's one of the reasons Eddie Murphy is one of the greatest stand-up comedians who ever lived. An absolute man of art, an absolute just genius beyond all belief. I don't know how many times I'm going to say genius during this little excerpt here, but everyone I'm going to talk about here is a genius. Dave Chappelle, another amazing comedian who can use words to play movies in your head. The Chappelle Show is easily the greatest skit show ever, right alongside In Living Color. I mean, this is just... Dave Chappelle is another one who could bring people together with his comedy and make you see the way life actually is in a funny way. He can make rape lighthearted. He can make crack use and heroin abuse lighthearted, and he can make it funny. He can make you see the story in your head with his words. Dave Chappelle, you are a god. Keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing. Keeping it going, I mean, there's so many great comedians. Bill Burr is one of the current greatest ever. Bill Burr is one who is at the forefront right now. He is the Lenny Bruce of our time because he is fighting against this offensive bullshit that everybody's, all this outrage culture, this cancel culture that we have right now. All these people who are, hate speech is bad. We shouldn't have hate speech because it hurts my feelings. Fuck your feelings. Learn to live with it. Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. If you're hurt by words, you are weak. Fuck you. Learn to live with words or don't listen to them. Be a human being. Bill Burr is all about that. He is a man who is from the 70s almost with his thoughts and mindset. The way he tells his comedy is genius, and he's another one who is a great storyteller, and he can promote ideas in a positive, lighthearted, funny way and offensive ways that make you think, they shock you into reality, and that is great. Bill Burr, God, I wish I could just meet you. You're an amazing comedian, one of the greatest ever in my personal opinion. Great job doing what you're doing. You keep fighting the good fight, and I'm gonna keep listening to you fight the good fight. How about one that has been Me Too'd, Louis C.K., another genius, absolute genius. I think he's paid for whatever he did. I don't even know what it was. Pulled his dick out or something, masturbated in front of people. Oh God, it hurts. I know it's wrong, and don't get me wrong, he should definitely have paid a price for it, but I believe he's paid that price. Now it's time for him to come back, because Louis C.K. is another genius who's able to promote ideas and tell stories in a comedic way, an absolute perfect way, and a lot of times. When he talks about hating deer, my God, when he talks about hating deer, that is a subject that, who gives a shit about deer? Well, he gives a shit about deer. He hates them. And the stuff he says during that comedy show, when he's talking about hating deer, I highly recommend it. I forgot which comedy special it is, but when he talks about hating deer, you actually hate those deer with him. It is hilarious. And that's another one. I can't wait to see Louis C.K. do his thing. I want to bring back up Eddie Murphy, absolute genius. You got to realize Eddie Murphy was doing Raw and Delirious, his two main comedy specials, the ones that he did that were, I mean, they are absolute works of art. But he did those when he was very young. Most comedians don't find their voice for 10, 15, 20, 25. Some comedians don't even find their voice ever. And he found his voice at a very young age. It is amazing what he did. But Eddie Murphy is about to come out with another comedy special, I believe. And I am both exalted and nervous about it, because I know that Eddie Murphy is an absolute king of comedy, but it's been a long time since he's been on stage. So I am worried. And he's also older now, and being rich and famous, it kind of changes your passion. So maybe things have changed with him, but I've got faith that Eddie Murphy's new comedy special is going to be great. And I recommend everybody go out there and you support Eddie Murphy, because, man, he is one of the absolute kings, gods of comedy. And he deserves all of our support. His Saturday Night Live special, his hosting of Saturday Night Live recently was great. All of his old characters, it was like he never left. And that's what I'm hoping his special is going to be like. So that's it for comedy. We're going to go into our next little topic of discussion. It's going to be about a band called Queensryche.
Well, hi, my name's Jimmy Thigpen, and I'm the owner of Jimmy Thigpen's Lawnmower Repair and Tax Service here in the greater state of Texas. And if there's one thing that Texans believe in besides executing people, that is lawnmower repair. Well, shit, two things, and doing your taxes, unless the government tries to take them away from you. I, Jimmy Thigpen, will always be here to help you for the best prices. If you can't get your lawn mowed, then I can repair your little mower for you for the best price in this area. And I also help you fill in the tax for all that stuff I'm helping you with. Jimmy Thigpen's Lawnmower Repair and Tax Service. Come on down and see me today. Get yourself a new lawnmower, get it repaired, and get your taxes did before Uncle Sam comes and takes away your freedoms.
Yes, let's talk about one of my absolute favorite bands, Queensryche. Now, a lot of the younger people out there, in fact, some of the older people, probably don't know who Queensryche is. Queensryche is a power metal band from the 80s and 90s who produced one of the greatest rock opera albums ever produced, called Operation Mindcrime. If you have not listened to Operation Mindcrime, then you don't know what's going on in this country and around the world. Operation Mindcrime is a work of art. It is beautiful in every way, and it tells the truth. It's almost like they were time travelers. They could see what was coming, and they presented it in a rock opera style. The entire album needs to be listened to from beginning to end, and if you like that type of music, power metal, that type of style of music, you're absolutely going to love this. Jeff Tate, the lead singer of Queensryche, is an amazing, complete tenor. He has one of the highest voices ever, and it's beautiful. It's a gorgeous voice, something I wish I had. It's an amazing voice, and he hits those high notes with skill and just beauty. Whoever wrote the lyrics and the songs to this, I believe it was a little bit of all of them combined, they wrote a novel, and they presented it in the form of music. And the novel is, let's just say it's about a person, a kid who goes into, basically he is recruited by an underground type organization, and he's basically turned into a hitman who kills people for this organization. Now, I'm not going to destroy the entire album. I'm not going to spoil it for you because you need to listen to it. But there are songs that are definitely you need to listen to. One of them is Revolution Calling. That is probably my favorite song off of Operation Mindcrime. Revolution Calling that is my anthem. That is exactly what we need. Every word in that song is truth. And when I say truth, I mean every lyric in that song is almost a prophecy told in the 80s about today, which either means that these guys are time travelers or the same shit that's happening today was happening back then. I mean, lyrics like, well, I'm tired of all this bullshit they keep selling me on TV about the communist plan and all the shady preachers begging for my cash, Swiss bank accounts while giving their secretaries the slam. They're all in Penthouse now or Playboy magazine, $1 million stories to tell. I guess Warhol wasn't wrong. Fame 15 minutes long. Everybody's using everybody, making the sale. I mean, lyrics like that just really hit home, especially in today. I mean, every lyric in the song hits home about today. I used to think that only America's way was right. But now the holy dollar rules everybody's lives. Gotta make $1 million, doesn't matter who dies. That's just exactly what you're seeing everywhere. Corporate America, everyone has an agenda. Everyone's trying to make the buck, man. They're trying to make that money no matter what. It doesn't matter how they make it. They're going to try to make it because money rules everything in this country. Everything you do is about money. There's almost no way to go out of your house without some sort of corporate entity or even mom and pop entity. Everybody is trying to make money in this country. It's capitalism. That's what capitalism is. But unchecked capitalism is what they're talking about. More lyrics from it. I used to trust the media to tell me the truth, tell us the truth. But now I've seen the payoffs everywhere I look. Who do you trust when everyone's a crook? Now we hear President Trump constantly saying fake news, fake news, fake news. Now he uses it with his own agenda in mind, but don't get it wrong. Don't get it twisted. The reality is there is fake news out there. News organizations, the giant channels that they have, 24-hour news media, those are not news organizations. They are entertainment organizations there to make money and to spread their agenda. That is what they're there for, and that's how they do things. It's amazing that these guys were able to come up with these lyrics back in the 80s, and they fit and they land home so hard and so true today. More lyrics from the song. Got no love for politicians or that crazy scene in D.C. It's just a power-mad town. But the time is ripe for changes. There's a growing feeling that taking a chance on a new kind of vision is due. And that is truth. It is time for a new time of vision in this country. It's time for a new way of doing things. Because right now it's not working. There are people suffering in this country. And we think all the time, because we've been fed by the media and we've been fed our entire lives, this country is the greatest country on earth. And in a lot of ways it is. But it is definitely corrupt to the highest echelons of power. And it's being bought and sold by giant mega corporations who have more money than the government itself. This is what's going on right now. Everything is corrupt. So, I mean, Queensryche, Geniuses, that's just one song off of the album. And the album goes on and on. The entire album is about a hitman, like I said, and a regular person who was basically hired by a person named Dr. X. That's the scary name they used in this case, by a shady underground organization to be a hitman, doing hits to basically, basically spread the agenda and get what was right for that organization to make them powerful. And the entire album, from the songs like The Mission, which is a powerful song, The Needle Lies, talking about drugs. Every song on the album is amazing. It's a rock opera in the best possible way, and most powerful album I've ever heard, I believe. I can't think of any other album that hits home so hard, at least to me. So Queensryche, the band, I recommend them wholeheartedly. Please, if you are into rock and the older school type of rock, like 80s stuff like that, it's not power metal per se, but it has that feel to it. It's not fantasy in a way of dragons and knights and castles and stuff like that. It's more fantasy and more like a film noir type of way. It's about the hitman aspect and the shady underground organization, the Dr. X, and a nun who used to be a prostitute who is still prostituting for the preachers, for the priests in the Catholic church that she's at. She's taken on the altar like a sacrifice. It's one of the lyrics from the song, and it's just absolutely just a genius album, and I can't recommend it enough. Queensryche, one of my favorite all-time bands. Please check them out. YouTube them, get them on Spotify, get them on whatever streaming app you happen to have, and get ready for a powerful experience. Smoke yourself some weed if you'd like, and just get blown away. Lose yourself in that album. Listen to it from the beginning to the end. Don't skip songs, just from the very beginning to the end. And I think it'll change your life. At least if you're into this type of music, you'll love it 100%, just like I do. Queensryche, man. That's what I'm talking about. As for right now, I'd like to thank every single one of you for listening to this podcast. All million of you. 1 million, 2 million, 3 million, 5 million. But in reality, probably no one. But thank you if you did listen to the podcast. And don't worry, next week, we're going to have an equally good podcast, if not better, because every single time I do this, I figure something out a little bit newer and a little bit better. And hopefully by the end of it, by episode 1 million, I will have it down finally. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, to thine own self be true. Always keep it real.
Next week on The Real Podcast, join DC Jones as he discusses such topics as weed in the Army, The Hammer, an actual hitman, real-life hitman,
the surveillance state that the United States has indeed become. His yum-yum favorite, Cherry Coke Slurpees. What being broke to him actually means. And one of his favorite bands, Alice in Chains. Only on The Real Podcast next week.